The wind was barely moving that morning at Camp Straker, the kind of stillness that felt unnatural on a Marine training range. A crowd of young Marines gathered behind an old man, his hands shaking slightly, his denim shirt faded by decades of sun and battlefields long forgotten. In his hands was something none of them had ever seen: a bright orange rifle. Too unusual, too flashy, too wrong. Laughter erupted behind him as someone said, "That thing belongs in a toy store, not on a Marine range." But the old veteran didn't turn around. He didn't respond. Instead, he tucked the rifle into his shoulder with a quiet, practiced confidence that silenced the closest observers. He slowed his breathing. He lifted his eye to the shimmering red optic, and when he finally pulled the trigger, the shot echoed across the desert like a thunderclap that didn't belong. 20 seconds later, a distant alarm blared from the furthest observation tower, 4,000 meters away. The Marines stopped laughing. The general stepped out of his tent, and for the first time in years, they realized that the man with the orange rifle wasn't just some old visitor. He was the legend they had forgotten. The story began a week earlier when Sergeant Coleman, the training supervisor, received a request he had never seen before. An elderly veteran had asked permission to visit the range to stretch his old bones and shoot a few rounds. Normally, such a request would have been politely declined, but the paperwork carried an unusual stamp, one reserved for special cases: old ghosts and men whose files were sealed. When the old veteran arrived, the Marines were confused. He looked like someone's grandfather, frail, slow-moving, wearing boots that had clearly been resoled too many times. His voice was steady but quiet, and he carried no medals, no insignia, nothing that suggested he was anyone important. But what stunned everyone wasn't the man, it was the equipment he brought. A giant, custom-built, bright orange precision rifle. The Marines whispered among themselves, "Is that thing real? Looks like a Halloween prop? Bro, even my kid's Nerf gun looks more tactical." But despite the jokes, curiosity hung in the air. When Coleman approached the veteran to ask about the rifle, the old man simply smiled. "She's my old friend," he said, patting the chassis. "Built her after the war. Doesn't look like much, but looks don't hit targets. Skill does." The Marines dismissed him as eccentric, maybe even delusional. Still, they allowed him space on the long-range lane, partly out of courtesy, partly out of intrigue. But the moment he lay down behind the rifle, everything changed. His shaking hands became still. His tired eyes sharpened. His breathing slowed into rhythmic harmony with the wind. The young Marines watched as if witnessing someone become younger right before them. His first shot hit a target at 200 meters, then at 2,000, then at 3,200. Jaws dropped, conversations went silent. But when he announced calmly that he was ready for the long one, the 4,000-meter tower, everyone burst into laughter again. "Sir, even our snipers can't hit that. That's beyond impossible. There's no way that orange thing can send a round that far." The old veteran didn't argue. He simply said, "Most people fail because they stop believing just before success." He chambered the round. He aligned the scope. He exhaled, and then he pulled the trigger. The rifle roared with a power none expected. A long, eerie silence followed as the bullet cut across dunes, airwaves, and 4 kilometers of unforgiving distance. Then the alarm sounded. Everyone froze. Only the old man smiled. Far from the range, a Marine spotter climbed the observation tower ladder, holding a radio, shouting in disbelief, "Direct hit? Repeat, direct hit?" Inside the camp, the general heard the commotion, stood up from his desk, and muttered, "Impossible." But as he walked outside and saw the orange rifle glinting under the sun, his expression changed. Recognition, respect, maybe even fear. The general whispered, almost to himself, "It can't be him." As the general approached, the Marines stepped aside, forming a path without being asked. The old veteran slowly stood up, dusting off his jeans. The general stopped a few feet away, staring at him with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. "I thought you were gone," the general said quietly. "Not yet," the veteran replied with a small grin. "Still got a few rounds left in me." The Marines watched with growing confusion. Who was this man? Why was the general treating him like a returning war hero? The general finally turned to the Marines and said, "You don't know who stands before you. This man trained the snipers who saved entire battalions. His accuracy turned battles. His innovations changed long-range warfare. That orange rifle you laughed at." He paused. "He built it to prove a point. That precision doesn't age." The laughter earlier in the day suddenly felt shameful. The general placed a hand on the veteran's shoulder. "Why did you really come here?" The old man's eyes softened, filled with years of memories, both painful and honorable. "Because skill dies if it isn't passed on," he said. "And these boys, they need to learn what the textbooks won't teach them." The general understood immediately. Training, legacy, the desire to give the next generation something more. So the general gave him what he needed. "Then teach them. The range is yours." Over the next weeks, the old veteran transformed the Marine snipers. He taught them wind-reading tricks that weren't in manuals. He showed them how to feel a rifle, not just aim it. He taught patience, discipline, humility. But more importantly, he taught them the courage to believe in the impossible. By the time he left the base, the Marines no longer saw a frail old man with an orange rifle. They saw a mentor, a living archive of experience, a warrior who had survived both war and time. As he walked away, one Marine called out, "Sir, what should we remember most?" The old man turned, the sun casting a long shadow behind him, and said, "Don't ever judge a man by what he carries. Judge him by what he can do." He gave them a final nod. Then he left the way he came, quietly, humbly, leaving behind a camp full of changed men and one unforgettable legacy. Final message: the story reminds viewers that true skill doesn't fade with age, and greatness is often hidden beneath what the world dismisses. Respect, humility, and willingness to learn from anyone are what make a soldier, a Marine, or a human being truly strong.